Ladies and gentlemen, welcome into a special edition of the Bama Standard with breaking news. Usually, when you see me come on randomly throughout the week, that means something's happened. And here at the University of Alabama, in terms of our football program, things are always happening. The most certain things in life, where there are three of them: death, taxes, and the transfer portal. And as we all know, Alabama is one of the leading suppliers of the transfer portal here as of late, and that does not change today. Breaking news: Jaylen Mbakwe, former five-star, highly touted, highly respected, highly regarded by the Alabama fan base, is out of Tuscaloosa. We're going to talk about it. And with me right now is Johnathan Lewis, who is as mystified and, I venture to say, frustrated as I am, because Johnathan, we were talking before we jumped on here. You look at the list of players. We went through several of them.
Yeah.
And you look at each one. Do each of these players have a justifiable reason to depart from Alabama? And you could arguably say, yes, they do. Either they got lost in the shuffle like Dylan Lonergan, or they just weren't properly utilized the way that they should have been. And shame on the coaches for how they handle some of those players, but that's neither here nor there. We can always complain about that later. It all made sense. They're going to greener pastures. They're going to programs. They're going to adopt them in and use them to the best of their abilities. But now we turn to Jaylen Mbakwe, a guy that saw extensive playing time, significant contributor this past season, helped out tremendously. Now, there were times where he showed that he was a rookie, and there are the other times that he showed that he is definitely a talented kid, and his trajectory is just through the roof. So this isn't a guy that wasn't getting played. This is a guy that was a contributor, like I said, and a guy that was going to more than likely snag a starting role next season, depending on what happens. It was that right there for him. Well, Johnathan, I've said a whole lot. I'm going to let you take over right now. Your initial reaction, and especially after what I just talked about.
Look, like you said, every one of these players that have entered the transfer portal, in my opinion, have had a justifiable reason. Even Justice Haynes, right? The running backs weren't utilized that much. Kobe Prentice, Kendrick Law. The list can go on and on. Even tight end Danny Lewis, even though our tight ends did get involved, he actually withdrew his name today from the transfer portal as well. Jahlil Hurley thinking that he's just not going to see playing time because the way Jaylen Mbakwe did look this season, that he was going to be the future opposite side of Damani Jackson this upcoming season. Jahlil Hurley being a redshirt freshman, well, we're still in this current season right now, had I think he was a 4 or 5 star as well, really high on the list of guys to keep, right? Well, he committed to Kansas yesterday after entering the transfer portal, I believe about a week ago. And then you see Jaylen Mbakwe, the one guy I said, look, this, if you would have told me he was going to enter the transfer portal, I said, you're crazy, is what I would have said. And look, he got the playing time. He was in 10 games, I believe. He was a 5-star, highly touted recruit. The fans loved him, right? Mm-hmm. Even Jalen Milroe, if he would have let's say he was a sophomore, couldn't go pro, if he would have transferred, I'd have been all right, because the fans criticized him. And look, I'm no short of that, to an extensive amount, right? So he got criticized every game, whether it was good or bad. I could even see that. Jaylen Mbakwe made plenty of freshman mistakes. We all forgave him. We all loved him. He got his own podcast with Ryan Williams. He talked about him and Ryan Williams being best friends, everything else. And it's just more of a disappointment than anything, in my opinion. It's because I thought of all the guys that would have left. Him or Ryan Williams definitely wouldn't have been one of those guys. They felt ingrained, right, from Alabama, all this stuff, Ryan Williams especially. Like, he just feels like they're a part of the team, and they were going to be there no matter what. And it's almost like a slap in the face, man. This is why it pays to wait your turn, right? Jahlil Hurley is probably finding this out right now. I don't know. Maybe he left for a different reason, right? But when you look at people, like you said, Dylan Lonergan, they just get lost in the shuffle. And with the NIL now, we know that had to be the reason, in my opinion, Jaylen Mbakwe left. There is no other reason. You played in 10 games this season. You saved a game, right? You had a game-winning interception, essentially. Like, everything was there for you. except there's one thing that we can't control: how much money someone is going to offer you, right? So whether that's a counter, I don't know the ins and outs of that, obviously. All I know is you look at this list of transfer portals for Alabama recruits and players, and it's starting to add up now, right? We talk about Justice Haynes, Dylan Olanigan, now Jaylen Mbakwe, Emmanuel Henderson. The list goes on and on. Kendrick Law, Kobe Prentice, Keanu Coot, right? So all these guys, it's starting to add up. And one thing is for sure now, you better be ready to play anytime you're on a roster at Alabama, because it looks like at any moment you're going to get that time at this point. But something to keep in mind for everybody out there: how, with this playing out the way it played with the Jaylen Mbakwe, how does Kalen DeBoer handle Keelan Russell coming in as a true freshman? Do you want to set him for a year and lose him possibly to give suitors an opportunity to offer him $10 to $15 million like Michigan did with Bryce Underwood and LSU? Or do you bypass Simpson and give Keelan the keys earlier than maybe he's ready to keep him appeased and happy? That's going to be something we got to keep our eye on moving forward for this upcoming season, even though we're not even there yet.
In terms of the quarterback situation, I think that Keelan Russell is a guy that is willing to bide his time and wait. And I think he understands that Ty Simpson is ahead of him. Austin Mack was brought there for a reason. I don't necessarily see him as being one of those over-anxious guys that tries to outbrand the brand and has to be in the spotlight immediately. But then again, this is a different generation and money talks. But from what we've learned so far, he's not that guy. Back to Jaylen Mbakwe, we look at the opportunity he has next year to really solidify himself as a premier player. We still don't know what Demai Jackson's going to do. He's got a high grade right now from my understanding, but is it high enough to entice him to the NFL? If it's money, I'm sure the NIL collective can provide what he needs to compensate him and convince him to come back. But next year, you have guys like Zay Mincy who will be back, whose trajectory is through the roof. Love we saw from that kid. Green, but very promising. Day Jones will be back, guy that really came on late, significant contributor. And Red Morgan, another guy that had his growing pains as well, showed that he was a rookie, but there were times of absolute brilliance. Then we have Chuck McDonald and Dijon Lee coming in, two promising guys. But Mbakwe can be that game changer, that difference maker. He can be the veteran in the room that is able to take the weight of that secondary essentially on his shoulders while these other guys come up to speed. So, again, I'm scratching my head and just asking why. And then I go back to the root of it, and it's already been talked about, the seven-figure deal. Now, listen, it's been reported, has not been confirmed, but major media sources have said that it's out there. That's a motivator. That's the strongest motivator here. I don't want to be that guy. I don't want to sound like the bitter ex-girlfriend, but it seems to me that this is the essential driving force, because other than that, you have everything you absolutely would want, and you're willing to forgo all of that. It hurts too, because like you said, he was embraced by all of us. Yes. He was a figurehead as a freshman. He was a polarizing figure like Ryan Williams, like Roll Tide Willie, and several other guys that really kind of were the cover athlete of this season. But now it's like all that's cast aside.
And that's why I brought up Keelan Russell, because I think of Jaylen Mbakwe like I think of Keelan Russell, which was he wouldn't be a guy to leave. And that's why I think this is something and this is why a GM is so important, by the way, with Courtney Morgan coming in, because now your job just got that much more important, especially in December with the transfer portal, because you're going to have to somehow find a way to navigate these waters, these, by the way, unregulated waters per se, right? So because we know the NCAA has no holds on any of this NIL going on. So it's essentially the wild, wild west right now. Something has to come from this. And it's not just because of it being Jaylen Mbakwe in Alabama, right? We're talking about everywhere. And by the way, one of the most prominent and important coaching staffs will most likely be put together in North Carolina, right, under Bill Belichick. Mm-hmm. And guys, He's about to run that like an NFL program with a salary cap. So everybody that thinks that Belichick is going to come in to Chapel Hill and do nothing, I'm telling you right now, this is going to be a very interesting season. And it's going to be interesting to see where Jaylen Mbakwe ends up, because I hate the way it's unregulated. I hate the fact that these coaching staffs are going to be put in precarious situations, right, to where they're going to be uncomfortable. All of a sudden, Jaylen Mbakwe is not there, right? These guys that you would typically kind of rely on, okay, he'll be my starter next year, is not going to be there anymore. Damani Jackson has not said if he's coming back or not. We don't know what's going on there. In a quick hurry, Alabama could be in real big trouble, in my opinion, in the secondary. Good thing Keon Sabb, right? Good thing we got some guys coming back next season with a little bit of experience. Hubbard had huge upside. Obviously, we saw what he's capable of. And I'm going to be interested to see what Kane Womack in the secondary looks like. Maybe they move these safeties around like we have in the past to a cornerback or to a nickel position and vice versa. I think we could see some shakeup in the back end because of Mbakwe leaving.
At what point does the NCAA or whoever is the main authority figure, that's the word I'm looking for, say, you know what, enough's enough? What's going to be the ultimate determining factor that says, okay, we got to slap some regulation here? Is it going to take an entire team going on strike like the NFL strikes from years ago to say, hey, we need to rein this in? What do you think is the ultimate breaking point, or is there a breaking point?
I think this has to come down to a couple of things. I've been against the NCAA since watching football and comprehending what the NCAA did, which was a bunch of nonsense and controlled nothing, in my opinion. So we either have to break away from the NCAA and find a governing party that will take that position and somehow find a way to take over that position, or it's just going to continue to be what it is, which is the NCAA saying, you guys wanted this, good luck. Right? So we're keeping our hands off of it. And they're almost like a toddler screaming, you got your way. Right? So here you go. It's all on you now. Or an adult, actually, more like it, saying you wanted it. Now you're just going to have to deal with it. Right? So I think that's what it's coming down to. It's going to have to be some type of governing going on, some type of regulation, because it's really, really obvious what was going on. That yesterday it was being reported that Mbakwe was contacted by several teams, right? And this is obviously through nothing confirmed, but a lot of rumors out there saying he was contacted. And then the very next day he enters the portal. How many of those scenarios have we seen in college football this year? Not just in Alabama, at a multitude of universities. And it's not going to stop anytime soon until somebody actually gets punished for it. And I'm not talking about a $100,000 fine any university can pony up easily. I'm talking about severe sanctions, right? Mm-hmm. So that's what I'm looking for.
And quite honestly, this is something I knew was coming this past weekend. Had to keep it under wraps. But here's the thing, and I want to go back to what Coach Saban had said when this stuff started being introduced to us. He said that it's going to be the Wild Wild West, and that it's going to be an auction. And everybody started to harshly criticize him and said that you're just upset because Alabama is no longer going to be able to stockpile talent like you're accustomed to. It's going to be a level playing field. Folks, this is not a level playing field. The rich will continue to get richer. Matter of fact, the big schools, the blue bloods, will continue to get richer, and those with the NIL collective who are willing to give above and beyond and give an unlimited NIL are going to be the real ones who benefit from this. So if you're thinking that a Vanderbilt or a South Carolina or any kind of middle-of-the-road team is going to all of a sudden become a powerhouse in college football, they're not. Now, will they occasionally get those 4- and 5-star guys that they aren't accustomed to getting? Yeah, they'll get them, but there's going to still be a huge roster disparity between them and the Ohio States, the LSUs, and so on and so forth.
Don't overlook the fact that Miami just had Shapiro pardoned and out of prison for giving money to Miami players at the University of Miami, right? Big, huge booster back in the day, paying players. They just released him a couple of days ago. We know what's about to happen. Shapiro is Miami all the way, and we're talking most likely, in my opinion, tens of millions of dollars that's about to flood into the NIL collective for Miami. This is about to change everything. I mean, it's already changing, but the extent is only going to get worse year by year until somebody can come in and somehow put something together, a committee, and regulate this thing.
I want to bring up something else. And the reason why this comes to mind is because I'm already seeing comments on several videos through this whole transfer portal process. People are quick to blame Kalen DeBoer. You got some fans saying that he is destroying Alabama and everything that Nick Saban built. And then they say Kalen DeBoer has zero control anymore. Yeah, you're absolutely right. What coach has control right now over these kids? Not one. It just drove out the greatest coach to ever be in the game, Nick Saban.
Exactly.
He had zero control. I'll let you in on a little conversation I had with a former player. I'm not going to name his name, but he went to visit the team a few years back when Coach Saban was still there in an attempt to motivate the guys and try to get them back on the right track and buy into the brand. Well, they didn't exactly like what he had to say because they think that his ideology was outdated, even though they hadn't won anything. But the main point of me telling you this is he went back to Coach Saban's office with him, shut the door. He turns around, faces Coach Saban, and he looks in his eyes. His eyes were that of a defeated war veteran. And he just looked up to this former player and said, I don't have any control anymore. I don't know what to do with them. When I was told this, I knew it was the beginning of the end. And it ultimately culminated in him leaving right after the Rose Bowl. So if you're quick to blame Kalen DeBoer, stop right there. Now, did Kalen DeBoer get a lot of things right this year? He got some things right. He did some things wrong. First year, new system, a lot to learn, a lot to adjust to. But don't assemble a firing squad at his house and place all this on his shoulders.
Now, I want to say something real quick. Look, Kalen DeBoer went 9-3 his first year at Alabama. Alabama was one play away from 9-3 last year under Nick Saban, in my opinion, with a better team. And Terrion Arnold with Kool-Aid McKinstry, with better players, in my opinion. You have a more seasoned Jalen Milroe this year, yes. But let's, like you said, let's not be too quick, right? So, and if you want to criticize somebody for the transfer portal, let's talk about the people that are in control of the transfer portal window. How you open up the window right before the playoffs, right after conference championships for 45 days, close it, and then reopen it after spring ball. So I'm not going to blame the players, because if the players don't transfer now, they don't get a chance to get in until after spring ball's already been played. So it would make no sense to transfer after this window closes, right? So, common sense will tell you that. The people that are typically A-plus athletes and most likely starters or quality backups are going to be entering the transfer portal right now, not after spring ball. Those are the guys that are creating depth. Those are usually, no disrespect, kickers, punters, people like that we're looking for, right? So think about that. And I believe, I could be wrong, I don't know this, but I believe it's the NCAA that creates these transfer portal windows, and they're trying to go to only one transfer portal window, and that's right after spring ball from like March 1st to March 30th or somewhere around there. And that could be coming up this upcoming season. So we got more changes coming possibly for the transfer portal to go from 2 to 1 and only after spring ball. So it's going to make things even that much more interesting.
Folks, we've been here long enough, and I think that we voiced our frustrations. Now it's time to hear from you. I want you down in that comment section below. Let's hear from the fans. Let's hear your feelings about all this. Is it one of panic? Is it one of, we don't need them? If they ain't wearing crimson, well, you know the rest. And a lot of you fans are going with that mantra. But the thing is, it's a lot deeper than that. We're not just losing players. We're losing key players at this juncture. So I want to hear from you. How do you feel? Do you feel like we can bounce back? Talk to me. Hit that like button. Hit that subscribe button and stay tuned for all the latest Bama news. Roll Tide, folks.
Roll Tide.